Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelava, and this is Speedplay France and Stellaris number 13. We left off ready to declare war on the Quifraz star hegemony, the green neighbor to our northeast. We basically get our forces ready to go, more or less bring them all together. We are having a bit of a difficulty with our energy supply, so we're going to be going around through all of our sector territories and just building orbital solar facilities across all of them, hopefully getting our energy supply up to a more or less sustainable level as our navy is completed. Our goal basically is just to, get our income up as high as we can. We don't have social programs being done right now, which means that we really don't have anything we can get rid of or readjust or realign in order to save our energy any more than we already are. Now that's concerning since we also got rid of our surplus pretty swiftly. Neither of those things is particularly great. However, we do have a pretty considerable military. Once we parked that, we gained 70 something energy per month as a surplus, so that's good. So long as our fleet isn't active, we basically don't have any worry about our energy budget. Now that isn't necessarily great, however, since we are planning to be very active with our navy indeed. So there is going to be a bit of a balancing act between how long we wait, just saving up energy, how many battleships we build, and really how ready we can be for the campaign season. More or less, though, we're just going to keep building up our navy as though it doesn't matter, keep building up various space stations on just every single one of our worlds, which will hopefully then open it up so that we can build solar panel systems on all of our stations on all of our worlds. Really just kind of industrializing the French Empire at this point. Now that will definitely increase our overall income. You'll see we're up to 98. Once again though, once the fleet actually does get into action, into motion, it will just remain to be seen whether or not it is more useful than not. And ultimately, there we go. We have quite a few ships ready. That brought our energy budget down by about 30, which is a little worrying. And we got advanced combat roles, which is very good. We can get antimatter reactors. That doesn't do anything for our national energy budget. However, it does quite a lot for the energy budgets of our individual ships, which will hopefully be able to make them much more effective in combat once it comes to that. We also can get some different refineries, which will hopefully be quite helpful and quite nice. And more than anything else, we are just going to prepare ourselves for the war to come. Do quite a bit of internal management, actually. Although at this point, quite frankly, it's needed to happen. We can also get battleship assembly yards, which will make our space forces considerably more effective and quicker to produce. Not as though we really need to speed up production, since we have something like 7 starports, all level 6, creating quite a bit of a fleet at any given instance. And really, energy is the main thing that we need. However, if we can get better battleships instead of more numerous battleships, and do the same good with that, then we would end up saving energy in the long run anyway. Really, energy has been and will probably continue to be the main thing that we need to work on and actually produce at decent levels in order to maintain the successfulness of our empire. Definitely industrializing our various worlds will help. We could probably also be giving minerals to our sectors so that they could actually be producing this all on their own. And I actually do appreciate that we are given this level of ability to micromanage our sectors. It is quite nice. We do end up sending a few minerals over to them. Hopefully they'll use that effectively in order to really just maintain what we've got and just produce from there more energy. Now that all said and done, once our new battleships are ready to go, the plan is basically just to clump them all up into a force and begin the war. We've also managed to complete a special project, gaining quite a bit of research, which is nice. Admittedly, that's the type of thing that we should have done earlier in the game, where 300 research points would have meant quite a bit more. We also take a group of 2 battleships and just have them go fight neutral hostile things, simply because we have so many ships we may as well. You will notice that we are in an energy deficit, which is very worrying since we've only got about half of our fleet in being actually moving, and we are spending all of our minerals just on really whatever we can, adjusting our people's positions and things along those lines throughout our various territories. Weirdly enough, that one group that I was clicking a few times was 25% happy as slaves, but 0% happy not as slaves. They were less happy because of the institution of slavery than they were being enslaved, and I guess not having to worry about other people being slaves. So that was interesting. At any rate, though, we have our military more or less ready to go, a combined fleet power of something like 50,000 in the fleets that we're actually planning to use, and we're going to go ahead and select the 4 worlds that we can in that area, which will more or less annex that people, except for the one world that is made up of people they ended up conquering, so they will have none of their own people in their empire. I think that's interesting. We also do go ahead and apparently have some rock potentials here. We go ahead and just do that special mission. We are now at war. We are in a state of war. We are splitting our navies up on that front to just deal with as many things as we can, whereas our whole 35,000 strength navy is fighting up against the large empire to the northeast. Over here, we're splitting our forces even further in order to just try to deal with everything that we possibly can. We don't want their fleets to be going around us and behind us and just attacking us when we really can't do very much about it. So if we can put under siege all of their worlds, that would be incredibly, incredibly useful. Meanwhile, we are fighting with our 35,000 strength fleet. However, we're not very much fighting really anything. They do have a fleet over by one of our sectors, which is a little worrying. However, the majority of our forces are in decent positions and doing decently well. Tiblik sector might come under some attack. We did split our main fleet into 2 groups of 17-ish thousand strength, and we're hopefully going to be able to do some landings on the enemy whose lands we're actually trying to take. It looks as though we did win that battle, and enemy fleets are present on a few of our systems. Really, there's just going to be quite a lot going on as we are fighting on a few fronts against just so many things. One of my least favorite parts about Stellaris, although admittedly something that's just going to, of course, be a portion of it, is just how there aren't front lines. You just kind of have your navies cat and mouse around. Really, though, there's nothing that could be done about that in a realistic sense other than really limiting the range and scope of faster than light in order to make it so ships have to prod through areas. And while I would maybe appreciate that, I can also see why they chose against it. At any rate, though, we also did find, as you may have noticed, a primitive people inside the borders of these people we're invading right now and whose capital we're attacking. So we might be able to... unfortunately, we left those soldiers not being supported, so we did end up losing a little bit there. Nothing too terrible. We won the war, or the invasion. We're going to upgrade our biolabs, and we are at their capital, so we can hopefully get some forces over to there and deal with that. We did also take over the peoples who were very primitive, so now we have that, and that is part of our empire. Meanwhile, there are still areas that have enemy resistance, not in the main empire. Over here, we're not really dealing with them since they just have so many worlds. It would be just incredibly tedious and probably not worthwhile to deal with all of their, all of them, basically, but we are fighting them where it comes up, mainly their capital and the other system we had taken. Invasions are still being planned throughout various worlds, and unfortunately, the stagnant ascendancy is very upset at us. However, they have an equivalent fleet power rating and fleet size rating. They want us to start releasing people who are enslaved, so we turn them down. However, that is a very worrying thing to be told to do while in the midst of a major combat operation like the one we are currently engaged in. So I'm not sure if they plan to attack us immediately or what exactly the deal is with that, but we did start producing quite a few additional ships. We also unfortunately can't integrate our vassal, and since they're disloyal, they don't want to actually work with us, which is not entirely great. They won't trade energy to us, so our deficit is becoming a very, very considerable problem at this point. Luckily, we're at 68% war score, so we could probably get some minor demands if the fallen ascendancy or stagnant ascendancy declares on us. They are overwhelming and angry, which are not entirely good combinations of things to feel against us. We also can go ahead and maybe switch up our government a little bit in order to rectify the energy deficit somewhat. We are, until then, though, just going to maintain what we can. Our forces are doing decently well. We are at 87% war score. An ordered statocracy, though, would lower the amount of energy we spend on our fleet maintenance, so we do go ahead and select that. And now we're only losing 21 a month, which is fairly decent, actually, considering the amount of fleets we have and the locations all of our fleets are in, and just their general statuses. So hopefully we'll be able to end the war fairly soon before we actually just completely run out of energy. That is obviously the main goal. However, we have more or less humbled the enemy fleets. They don't seem to be posing very much of a threat. We are securing more and more of their territories, which is just entirely helpful. Although the war definitely does need to be brought to a swift and ready conclusion. Otherwise, we do face the risk of being attacked by the fallen ascendancy or stagnant ascendancy while we are so heavily engaged elsewhere. We also really need to get all of our fleets into ports so that we can hopefully get a bit of an energy buffer between us and just bankruptcy. Although that is potentially not the most likely thing. There we go, we have hit the bottom. We are losing 73 energy a month, and we don't have any to lose. Also, our leader is dead. We do go ahead and hire a general, our great general. He is our new, I guess, military, more or less, emperor. We did manage to win the war, which is great. We're going to go ahead and enslave all of those peoples and demolish their statues of purity, since we don't actually want them to maintain their belief set, since it doesn't really work in with our system. Alright, so that all more or less achieved. We can rearrange the viceroyalty of the inner arm. We can't just immediately declare war on them again. They've changed that, so we do have a truce. And at this point, we are making a surplus. That's just because our fleets are coming back home. We are nearly the most powerful. Our people make up 14% of our state. And we are the 5th now most populous people in the galaxy. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. When we come back tomorrow, we're going to have to find our way out of this conundrum.